You mean to tell me that your species deliberately infected themselves with modified versions of deadly pathogens? For protection? High Council member Zixtal's facial tentacles writhed in barely contained horror. Dr. Sarah Chen maintained her professional composure, though the corner of her mouth twitched slightly. After 3 years as Earth's representative to the Galactic Medical Council, she had grown accustomed to explaining humanity's peculiar medical practices to her alien colleagues. That's correct, Council member. We call them vaccines. They've been a cornerstone of human preventive medicine for centuries. The assembled aliens exchanged alarmed glances. The Arxian delegate's crystalline form actually flickered, their species equivalent of a shudder. But that's madness, sputtered Council member Zixtal. To deliberately introduce pathogens into one's system. It goes against every principle of medical safety we hold sacred. Sarah suppressed a sigh. She had known this emergency session would be challenging when she received the urgent summons, but she hadn't expected quite this level of resistance. The situation was too dire for cultural misunderstandings to get in the way. With all due respect, Council member, we don't have time for a debate on human medical practices. The Nexus virus is spreading through the Orion arm at an unprecedented rate. 3 systems have already been quarantined. We need to discuss Earth's offer of assistance. The mention of the virus caused a ripple of anxiety through the chamber. The Nexus virus had emerged seemingly out of nowhere 6 standard months ago, devastating every species it encountered. Its ability to rapidly mutate and jump between radically different alien physiologies had the entire medical community baffled. Every species, that is, except humans. High Council member Zixtal composed himself, his tentacles settling into a more formal arrangement. Yes, about that. Your report claims that humans have experienced multiple exposures to the Nexus virus with only minimal effects. Correct, Sarah confirmed. Our initial analysis indicates that the Nexus virus is remarkably similar to a family of viruses that have circulated on Earth for millennia. We call them influenza viruses, or the flu, colloquially. While unpleasant, they're generally not life-threatening to healthy humans. Not life-threatening? The Arxian delegate's crystalline form pulsed with disbelief. The Nexus virus has a 90% mortality rate among Arxians. The Zentari lost an entire colony world in less than a standard month. I understand how incredible this must sound, Sarah said carefully. But humans have been dealing with similar viruses throughout our entire evolutionary history. Our immune systems have developed robust responses. What's more, we've learned to harness these responses through vaccination programs that provide broad-spectrum protection against viral threats. She pulled up a holographic display showing comparative infection rates and outcomes across different species. The human data stood out starkly. While other species showed devastating mortality curves, the human statistics looked more like a mild seasonal illness. As you can see, even without specific vaccination against the Nexus virus, humans show a natural resistance. When infected, most experience what we would consider mild to moderate flu symptoms. Fever, body aches, respiratory congestion. Recovery typically occurs within 7 to 14 Earth days. The chamber erupted in overlapping exclamations and questions. Sarah waited patiently for the noise to settle, knowing that the next part of her presentation would be even more challenging for her colleagues to accept. High Council member Zixtal raised a tentacle for silence. Dr. Chen, are you suggesting that humans could continue to function while infected with this virus? That they wouldn't require immediate medical stasis? Not only can we function, Council member, but it's common practice on Earth to continue daily activities with mild viral infections. We have a variety of over-the-counter medications that help manage symptoms. Many humans simply power through minor illnesses. The Arxian delegate's crystalline form briefly turned a deep shade of purple. Their species' expression of shock. Power. Through? You mean to say humans deliberately remain active while hosting active viral infections? Within reason, yes. We have a cultural concept called sick days, allocated time off work for illness, but many humans choose to continue working through mild viral infections, particularly if they can work remotely. The chamber fell into stunned silence. Sarah used the moment to advance her presentation to the next section. This brings me to Earth's offer of assistance. We propose a 3-part strategy to combat the Nexus virus crisis. First, we can provide human medical personnel to assist in caring for the infected. Since we're naturally resistant, we can safely work in contaminated zones without risk of serious illness. Second, our research institutes have extensive experience studying similar viruses. We're confident we can adapt our existing vaccines and antiviral medications to target the Nexus virus effectively. Third, we believe human antibodies from recovered patients could be used to develop treatments for other species, similar to techniques we've used in past epidemics on Earth. The silence stretched on as the council members processed this information. Finally, High Council Member Zixtal spoke, his voice carrying a mix of hope and lingering disbelief. Dr. Chen, while your offer is generous, I must ask, what does Earth want in return for this assistance? Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Nothing beyond our existing trade agreements, Council Member. Earth considers pandemic response a matter of galactic public health. We've learned through bitter experience that viruses don't respect borders, or in this case, solar systems. Helping contain this outbreak is in everyone's best interest. How very human, the Arxian delegate observed, their crystalline form shifting through thoughtful patterns of light. Indeed, Sarah agreed, though I should mention that our medical teams do have one non-negotiable condition. The council members tensed visibly. Here it comes, their postures seemed to say, the real price for human help. Our medical personnel must be allowed to take regular breaks for something we call coffee. It's a traditional human medicinal beverage that many consider essential for optimal functioning. The tension in the chamber broke as several council members made their species equivalent of nervous laughter. Even High Council Member Zixtal's tentacles relaxed slightly. I believe we can accommodate that requirement, Dr. Chen. Though I must ask, this coffee won't interact dangerously with the virus, will it? Sarah managed to keep a straight face as she replied, on the contrary, Council Member. Many humans consider it an essential part of recovery from viral infections, along with something we call chicken soup. And so began one of the most unusual pandemic responses in galactic history. Human medical teams, armed with centuries of experience fighting similar viruses, and copious amounts of coffee, deployed throughout the affected systems. Their casual attitude toward the deadliest virus in the galaxy caused nearly as much consternation as the virus itself. Reports filtered back to the Council of Humans continuing to work 12-hour shifts despite active infections, passing off obvious symptoms as just allergies, and insisting they were fine, even while running fevers that would have sent other species into emergency stasis. More than one alien medical administrator had to be talked down from panic when they discovered their human staff taking power naps between patients instead of submitting themselves for immediate quarantine. The humans, for their part, found the whole situation somewhat amusing, as one nurse was heard telling a horrified Zentari doctor, "Trust me, this is nothing compared to that time I worked a double shift in the ER during flu season and a norovirus outbreak." Now that was rough. Speaking of which, is there any more coffee in the break room? Perhaps the greatest culture shock came when the humans introduced their concept of vaccination parties, carefully controlled events where multiple people were deliberately exposed to weakened forms of the virus to build immunity. The council nearly had a collective meltdown when they learned this had been standard practice on Earth for generations. But it worked. Within 6 standard months, the combined application of human medical expertise, modified Earth vaccines, and antibody treatments had brought the Nexus virus under control. Mortality rates plummeted as human-developed treatments were distributed throughout affected systems. The virus was downgraded from a galactic pandemic to a manageable seasonal illness. In the end, humanity's peculiar relationship with viral infections, forged through millennia of evolution and centuries of medical advancement, had saved countless lives across the galaxy. Though many species still found human medical practices somewhat disturbing, none could deny their effectiveness. At the official ceremony marking the end of the crisis, High Council Member Zixtal made a point of personally thanking Dr. Chen. His tentacles arranged themselves in a pattern of deep respect as he spoke. Dr. Chen, the galaxy owes humanity a great debt, though I still find many of your species' medical practices unsettling. I cannot argue with the results. You've turned what we thought was the deadliest virus in the galaxy into something manageable. How do humans maintain such resilience in the face of illness? Sarah considered this for a moment before responding. I think it's because we learned long ago that sometimes the best way to deal with a challenge is to acknowledge it, adapt to it, and keep moving forward. That, and we developed really good pain relievers and antipyretics. She paused thoughtfully. Also coffee, definitely coffee. The High Council member's tentacles writhed in what Sarah had come to recognize as bemused acceptance. Indeed, though I feel compelled to note that our analysis of this coffee suggests it's mildly toxic to most carbon-based life forms. Oh, it absolutely is, Sarah agreed cheerfully. But that's never stopped us before. Would you like to try some? I just got a fresh supply of premium earth-roasted beans. The High Council member's tentacles went rigid with alarm. I think I will decline. Though I am beginning to understand why your species has such a unique perspective on what constitutes a medical threat. Sarah just smiled and took another sip of her coffee. Sometimes the best medicine was simply refusing to let a virus slow you down, even if the rest of the galaxy thought you were crazy for doing so. As she watched the various council members mingle at the ceremony, she couldn't help but wonder what they would make of humanity's other medical practices. Wait until they learned about how humans deliberately exposed themselves to UV radiation for aesthetic purposes, or the concept of elective surgery. But those were discussions for another day. For now, she was content knowing that humanity's peculiar resilience had helped save the galaxy from what had seemed like an unstoppable threat, even if they had done it while insisting they were totally fine, and just needed another cup of coffee. 6 standard months after the official end of the Nexus virus crisis, Dr. Sarah Chen found herself once again standing before the Galactic Medical Council. This time, however, the emergency wasn't a virus, it was bureaucracy. Dr. Chen, High Council member Zixtal began, his tentacles arranged in what she recognized as their deeply concerned configuration. We've received some disturbing reports about human medical practices in the wake of the crisis. Sarah maintained her diplomatic composure, though internally she was already reaching for her emergency stash of headache medication. What seems to be the concern, Council member? According to these reports, humans have begun implementing what they call standard Earth protocols in various medical facilities across the galaxy. This includes... His tentacles twisted in distress as he consulted his datapad, encouraging patients to walk it off when experiencing minor trauma, applying frozen water packets to injuries, and prescribing something called chicken soup for viral infections. The Arxian delegates' crystalline form flickered rapidly, their equivalent of clearing their throat. There are also reports of humans introducing recreational physical combat activities in recovery centers, claiming they boost immunity. Ah, Sarah said carefully. You're referring to our physical therapy and exercise programs, and I believe the recreational combat you're mentioning is probably yoga. Yoga? The word seemed to cause physical discomfort to High Council member Zixtal's vocal apparatus. We have footage of humans contorting themselves into unnatural positions while claiming it promotes healing. Several species filed formal complaints, believing they were witnessing some form of ritualistic torture. Sarah bit back a laugh. I assure you, Council member, yoga is a well-established therapeutic practice on Earth, as are all the other protocols you've mentioned. They're part of our holistic approach to medicine. Holistic? The Zentari representative's bioluminescent spots pulsed with alarm. You mean humans consider these practices actual medicine? Indeed. Sarah pulled up a holographic display showing historical data from Earth's medical archives. What may seem unusual to other species has been refined through centuries of human medical practice. Take the frozen water packets, or ice packs as we call them. They're a standard first response to many types of minor injuries, reducing inflammation and pain. But deliberately applying frozen substances to injured tissue. The Arxian delegate's form shimmered with disbelief. Wouldn't that cause additional trauma? Actually, when properly applied, it helps prevent additional trauma, Sarah explained. Just like how moderate exercise during recovery can accelerate healing for many conditions, humans have found that complete immobilization often does more harm than good. The council chamber erupted in murmurs of confusion and concern. Sarah noticed several representatives discreetly accessing their data terminals, presumably fact-checking her claims about human medical practices. High Council member Zixtal's tentacles writhed in what she recognized as their trying to be diplomatic pattern. Dr. Chen, while we acknowledge humanity's unique contributions during the Nexus virus crisis, we have concerns about these practices spreading throughout galactic medical facilities. Perhaps we should establish some guidelines. With respect, Council member, Sarah interrupted, pulling up another display. I have data showing improved recovery rates across multiple species when these protocols are properly adapted and implemented. Would you like to review the statistics? The chamber fell silent as the holographic displays showed clear improvements in patient outcomes. Even the most skeptical council members couldn't argue with the numbers. But how? The Zentari representatives' bioluminescent spots had shifted to their puzzled frequency. These practices seem to contradict established medical principles. Sarah smiled. Sometimes the best medicine isn't about avoiding discomfort entirely, but about working through it strategically. Humans learned this through millennia of trial and error. And speaking of working through discomfort, she checked her chronometer. I believe it's time for my afternoon coffee. Would anyone care to join me? I brought some traditional earth herbal teas as well, for those who found the coffee too intense. The memory of their previous experiments with coffee caused several council members to make their species equivalent of a shudder. However, the Arxian delegates' crystalline form shifted to indicate curiosity. These herbal teas, they're less toxic than coffee? Generally speaking, yes, though I should warn you that some humans consider that a drawback. As Sarah led a small group of brave council members to experience Earth's lesser-known medicinal beverages, she couldn't help but reflect on how far they'd come. From barely tolerating human medical practices to actively implementing them, even if they still found them somewhat barbaric. A message notification popped up on her datapad. It was from one of the human-staffed medical facilities in the Orion Arm. Dr. Chen, patient recovery rates up 50% since implementing modified Earth protocols. Minor issue. Had to explain that take 2 aspirin and call me in the morning is not actually ancient human ritual phrase. Also, several species now addicted to chamomile tea. Please advise. P.S. Send more coffee. Sarah smiled as she composed her response. Sometimes the best way to advance medical science was to show that healing didn't always require high-tech solutions or complete sterility. Sometimes all you needed was some light exercise, a hot beverage, and the stubborn human determination to keep going even when you felt terrible. Though she made a mental note to establish some guidelines about introducing alien species to caffeine, the last thing they needed was another galactic crisis, this time caused by coffee withdrawal. As she sipped her own coffee and watched several council members cautiously sample various herbal teas, she wondered what other human medical practices might eventually find their way into galactic healthcare. Wait until they discovered acupuncture or the concept of elective cosmetic procedures. But those were debates for another day. For now, she was content knowing that humanity's peculiar approach to medicine was gradually being accepted, even if other species still found it somewhat alarming. After all, any medical practice that had helped humans survive everything from the common cold to the deadliest virus in the galaxy couldn't be entirely wrong, even if it did sometimes involve telling patients to walk it off or prescribing soup as medicine. The first Galactic Medical Integration Conference was proceeding exactly as Dr. Sarah Chen had expected. Complete chaos. Absolutely not! The Zentari Chief Medical Officer's bioluminescent spots were pulsing at a frequency that indicated extreme agitation. We cannot possibly approve the human practice of preventive medicine. The very concept of treating healthy individuals defies all logical medical principles. Sarah maintained her professional demeanor despite the growing headache behind her eyes. The conference room at the Galactic Medical Council's headquarters was filled with representatives from over 30 spacefaring species, all gathered to establish standardized protocols for incorporating human medical practices into galactic healthcare. After the success of both the Nexus virus response and the subsequent implementation of Earth protocols, the Council had decided it was time to formally integrate human medical knowledge into mainstream galactic medicine. They were currently on hour 6 of what was supposed to be a 2-hour session on preventive care. Perhaps, Sarah suggested diplomatically, we should review the long-term data from Earth's preventive medicine programs. The statistics on disease prevention and early intervention are quite compelling. High Council member Zixtal, who had become something of an advocate for human medical practices, despite still refusing to try coffee, raised a tentacle in support. I concur. The human approach to preventing illness before it manifests has shown remarkable results in preliminary trials across multiple species. The Arxian medical director's crystalline form shifted through patterns indicating skepticism. But their methods, according to these reports, humans regularly subject themselves to deliberately stressful physical activity for health maintenance. They intentionally expose their bodies to controlled environmental pressures. They even periodically fast for metabolic optimization. You mean exercise, environmental adaptation training, and intermittent fasting, Sarah corrected gently. All well-documented practices that help maintain optimal health and prevent various medical conditions. They also, the Zentari Chief Medical Officer added with visible distress, engage in something called annual checkups, where perfectly healthy individuals submit to medical examinations without any symptoms present. Sarah suppressed a sigh. Yes, that's another cornerstone of preventive medicine. Regular health screenings help identify potential issues before they become serious problems. The chamber erupted in overlapping discussions, with various representatives expressing combinations of horror, fascination, and reluctant interest in human medical philosophies. A quiet chime indicated an incoming priority message on Sarah's datapad. It was from Dr. James Martinez, head of the newly established Human Medical Integration Team at the Orion Arm's largest medical facility. Sarah. Good news and bad news. Good news. Preventive care protocols showing amazing results across all participating species. Bad news. Had to stop Arxians from attempting human-style high-intensity interval training. Turns out crystal-based lifeforms don't respond well to burpees. Also, Zentari discovered concept of cheat days in human dietary guidelines, now having trouble convincing them that occasional indulgence doesn't mean gorging on forbidden substances. P.S. Several species now obsessed with step-counting devices, requesting guidance on explaining that 10,000 steps isn't actually magical number. Sarah massaged her temples while composing a response. The integration of human medical practices was proving more challenging than anyone had anticipated, but not for the reasons they'd expected. Instead of resistance, they were dealing with over-enthusiasm and misinterpretation. Dr. Chen? High Council member Zixtal's voice brought her attention back to the chamber. Perhaps you could address the Council's concerns about another aspect of human preventive medicine, this practice of mental health maintenance. The chamber fell silent. Mental health was a delicate topic in galactic medicine, with different species having wildly varying approaches to psychological well-being. Certainly, Sarah replied, pulling up a new set of holographic displays. Mental health maintenance is an essential component of human preventive medicine. We've found that psychological well-being directly impacts physical health outcomes. But according to these reports, the Arxian medical director interjected, humans engage in voluntary psychological stress relief through activities like meditation and something called mindfulness. They deliberately alter their mental states. That's correct, Sarah confirmed. These practices help manage stress, improve emotional regulation, and enhance overall well-being. We've found they're particularly effective when combined with physical preventive care measures. Another message popped up on her datapad, this time from the psychiatric wing of the Orion facility. Dr. Chen. Meditation classes going well, but had to explain that taking a mental health day doesn't mean entering suspended animation to reset neural patterns. Also, several Zentari have become extremely enthusiastic about human concept of therapy. They're now insisting on weekly sessions to discuss their feelings about crystalline growth patterns. On positive note, group yoga sessions showing remarkable results in reducing interspecies tensions, though still working on convincing everyone that downward dog isn't actually ritual submission pose. Sarah couldn't help but smile. For all their initial resistance, many species were embracing human medical practices with unexpected enthusiasm, even if they sometimes misinterpreted the details. Perhaps, she suggested to the chamber, we should establish a comprehensive education program before implementing further preventive care protocols. It's important that these practices be properly understood and adapted for each species' unique physiology and psychology. High Council member Zixtal's tentacles arranged themselves in their relieved configuration. An excellent suggestion, Dr. Chen. Though I must ask, will this education program include instruction in human recreational activities? Several council members have expressed interest in something called pickleball. They seem to believe it has significant preventive health benefits. Sarah managed to maintain her professional composure, though it took considerable effort. We should probably focus on basic preventive care protocols first. Though physical recreation certainly plays a role in human health maintenance, perhaps we should save the introduction of competitive sports for a later phase. As the conference finally began to make progress on establishing standardized preventive care guidelines, Sarah reflected on how far they'd come. From viewing human medical practices as primitive and dangerous, the galactic medical community had moved to actively embracing them, even if that enthusiasm sometimes needed to be tempered with careful guidance. A final message appeared on her datapad, this one from the Council's administrative office. Dr. Chen, request clarification on human concept of work-life balance as preventive health measure. Several Council members now refusing to attend meetings outside standard hours, citing self-care requirements. Also, meditation room becoming overcrowded during peak stress periods. Consider expanding facilities. P.S. High Council member Zixtal asking about hot yoga. Please advise on safety protocols for temperature-sensitive species. Sarah began composing a response, making a mental note to develop clear guidelines about adapting human health practices for various alien physiologies. They'd already handled a deadly virus and introduced basic Earth medical protocols. How hard could it be to teach the galaxy about preventive healthcare? Though perhaps they should hold off on introducing the concept of CrossFit. The galaxy might not be ready for that level of human medical enthusiasm just yet. The emergency notification reached Dr. Sarah Chen during what was supposed to be her first vacation in 3 standard years. She had just settled into her favorite chair at her Earth apartment, coffee in hand, when her datapad lit up with urgent messages from the Galactic Medical Council. Urgent. Multiple reports of unprecedented medical incidents across major galactic medical facilities. Emergency session required. Human expertise needed immediately. Sarah studied the subsequent data stream with growing concern, which quickly turned to disbelief, and then, despite her best efforts at maintaining professional decorum, barely suppressed amusement. Within hours, she found herself back in the council chamber, facing a collection of highly agitated medical administrators from across the galaxy. Dr. Chen, High Council member Zixtal began, his tentacles arranged in what she had come to recognize as their trying not to panic configuration. We appear to have a situation regarding the implementation of human medical practices. I've reviewed the preliminary reports, Sarah replied carefully. Perhaps you could clarify the specific concerns. The Arxian medical director's crystalline form pulsed with agitation. Clarify? Multiple species are now exhibiting unprecedented behaviors that they claim are based on human medical principles. We have reports of individuals refusing to enter medical stasis for minor ailments, insisting they can power through their conditions. Several Zentari colonies have established what they call wellness centers, where perfectly healthy individuals gather to deliberately expose themselves to physical stress. You mean they've opened gyms? Sarah translated. Furthermore, the Zentari chief medical officer interjected, bioluminescent spots flickering rapidly. We're receiving reports of patients demanding something called second opinions, and questioning their medical providers about treatment options. Some are even conducting their own research into their conditions. Sarah took a careful sip of her coffee to hide her expression. Patient advocacy and medical literacy are important aspects of human health care. We encourage individuals to be informed and engaged in their medical decisions. But they're using something called the Internet to research medical conditions. The Arxian medical director's form shimmered with distress. Yesterday, a Zentari patient presented their doctor with a detailed analysis of treatment options they had Googled. Sarah nearly choked on her coffee. I see. Perhaps we should discuss establishing guidelines for reliable medical information sources across species. A priority message flashed on her datapad from Dr. Martinez. Sarah, situation critical. Patients across all species now exhibiting classic human healthcare behaviors. Multiple reports of individuals saying they're fine despite obvious symptoms. Arxians attempting to walk off crystalline fractures. Zentari discovering concept of sick days and using them for mental health maintenance. Also, someone introduced concept of WebMD to Galactic Network. Now dealing with epidemic of self-diagnosis and hypochondria across 17 species. Send help. P.S. High Council member Zixtal asking about natural remedies. Please advise before entire council switches to homeopathy. Sarah composed herself before addressing the chamber again. Distinguished colleagues, while I understand these changes may seem alarming, they actually indicate successful integration of human medical principles. However, we may need to provide better context and guidance. Context? High Council member Zixtal's tentacles writhed. Dr. Chen, we have reports of individuals attempting to sleep off serious conditions, claiming that rest and hydration will resolve their ailments. To be fair, Sarah pointed out, proper rest and hydration are crucial components of recovery for many conditions. Though I agree we should establish clearer guidelines about when more intensive medical intervention is necessary. Another message appeared on her datapad, this one from the psychiatric department. Dr. Chen, new development. Multiple species now experiencing human-style medical anxiety. Patients alternating between refusing to seek treatment for serious conditions and demanding emergency care for minor ailments. Also, several species have discovered concept of home remedies. Currently dealing with surge in attempts to cure various conditions with soup. Request immediate guidance on explaining difference between human traditional medicine and actual medical necessity. P.S. Someone introduced concept of essential oils to Arxian community. Situation volatile. Sarah realized they were facing an unexpected challenge. Rather than resistance to human medical practices, They were dealing with over-enthusiastic adoption without proper understanding of context. I propose, she addressed the council, establishing a comprehensive education program about human medical philosophy. We need to help other species understand the balance between self-care and professional medical intervention, between patient empowerment and medical expertise. High Council member Zixtal's tentacles settled slightly. That seems wise, though perhaps we should also address this growing trend of individuals claiming they just need another coffee when exhibiting serious symptoms. Ah, Sarah said diplomatically. That might be partially my fault, though in humans' defense, coffee actually does help with many minor conditions. A final message appeared on her datapad from the Council's research division. Dr. Chen, analysis shows 500% increase in patient inquiries about preventive care, alternative medicine, and natural healing. Multiple species now attempting to establish holistic wellness programs. Request urgent guidelines on explaining that healing crystals aren't actually medical devices, even to crystalline-based life forms. Also, several council members expressing interest in something called juice cleanse. Please advise before situation escalates. P.S. Is it true humans sometimes treat headaches by deliberately inducing minor pain in other body parts as distraction? Multiple species very concerned about this practice. Sarah began drafting a comprehensive response, realizing that introducing human medical practices to the galaxy had opened an unexpected Pandora's box. They'd succeeded in getting other species to take a more proactive approach to health, but perhaps they'd done too good a job. As she watched the council members debate the merits of various human medical philosophies, she couldn't help but appreciate the irony. They'd gone from fearing human medical practices as primitive to embracing them so enthusiastically that they needed to be reminded about the importance of actual medical science. Though perhaps they should delay introducing the concept of walking it off to species that could literally detach and regrow limbs. Some medical practices, it seemed, didn't translate well across species boundaries. The end.